Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Avrin. In this video, I'm giving you the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY annual percentage yield for December 2025. And the last time I done this video was for November 2025. Since then, though, we've got several accounts that have lowered their APY. This is the reckoning right now, what's going on with some of these accounts. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions, very well-known banks and financial institutions that have a nice high-yield savings account. However, the yield isn't high enough to get in the top 10. And then I'm going to go over real briefly the accounts that have dropped out of the top 10 from the last time I done this video for November 2025. There are several accounts that lowered their APY so much that they're no longer in the top 10. And then I'm going to get into the top 10 list and give you a calculation example of a certain amount of money in all of these accounts so you can see how much interest you would earn over just a month of having money sitting in a high yield savings account. And first, before we get into the honorable mentions, I want to show you a couple of neat, interesting graphs here. The median bank account balances by age and by household type. Personally, I don't compare myself to anybody else. I'm just trying to be the best version of myself, but it is nice sometimes to kind of see how you stack up amongst the averages out there. So for these charts, the average balances shown include checking, savings, money market, and brokerage cash, as well as prepaid debit cards. So basically like liquid cash, money that you can access, quickly and easily and move around if you needed to. Under 35, the median average is about $5,400. 35 through 44 age, $7,500. 45 through 54 years of age, $8,700. 55 through 64, $8,000. So it drops off a little bit. And then you have a big jump right here from ages 65 to 74, $13,400. And then 75 years of age and older, $10,000 is the median average. So very interesting to see the median average amongst the ages kind of shift. There's a certain amount that's kind of hanging around. You see that 7,000, 8,000 seems to be a sweet spot as a median average for everybody. That's not saying that everybody has, their account at that much. There's higher than that, there's lower than that. That's just a median average. Now you're going to see more of a bigger difference right here down below me on the screen. The median bank account balance by household type. So these are the average balances of those same type of accounts as the other graph, by age. So right here we have single with children. The average bank account balance amongst those different kind of bank accounts is $2,400. Single, no child under the age of 55, median average is about $4,000. Single, no child greater than the age of 55, $4,300. Couple with children, $12,500. A big jump right there. And then couple with no child, $16,000. Maybe you're somewhere in that realm. Maybe you're outside of that realm. Maybe you're underneath that realm. Just something interesting to look at to see how you may stack up. But now let's get into the honorable mentions of this list right here. First, starting with the Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account. Now, this account has stayed steady for the past month at 3.4% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Now, I've used Capital One personally for a savings account as well as, I believe, a checking account and a credit card. And I like the platform. I like the user interface on the apps. I haven't had any kind of negative issues with Capital One in terms of transferring money or receiving money or the app itself that much. There was the issue, of course, with Capital One, their savings account, not offering the higher yield savings account to people when they had a higher yield savings account available. They're just kind of keeping people in a lower account. And there's a whole settlement about that. I made a video on that. See it right there popping up on the screen. I have a link to that in the description. You want to know about that. Maybe you were affected by that. You want to check that out. The deadline has passed to make some changes in regards to your claim for that, but it's still interesting to see what's going on with that big, multi-million-dollar lawsuit and settlement that happened with Capital One in regards to their high yield savings account and their not so high yield savings account. But besides that, I can't really think of anything else that much that I was affected by negatively with Capital One. Right now, their savings account is holding steady at that 3.40% APY very nicely. Now let's move on to the next honorable mention here. It is the Ally savings account. Now this account previously about a month ago was at 3.4% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.3% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, Ally is another financial institution that I have used personally with their savings account and their spending account. And I've had a CD with them before as well. I didn't have any negative issues with Ally in terms of my, balance, transfers, closing accounts, opening accounts, different things like that. Nice user interface on this app as well. A little bit more minimalistic, not like to the point where it's very bare bones or anything like that. Just a little bit more minimalistic compared to Capital One, but not like extremely where you're wondering like, where's the information at? Typically they let you, transfer money into the accounts as much as you want to, but as far as like withdrawals, they have a cap on it like that. So Ally has that going on, whereas many other savings accounts don't have that going on anymore. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you do a lot of withdrawing from your savings account, this one might not be the one for you. If you're keeping it as a high yield savings account to hold an emergency fund, hold your money in, not do a lot of withdrawing, anything like that, then you won't have an issue with that. Now let's move on to the next honorable mention. That is going to be the Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account. This APY has held steady for the past month at 3.65% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, I've used this online savings account as well before, and I like the user interface of it, of the app, kind of minimalistic as well. Not a lot of bells and whistles, but also not super bare bones or anything like that. Just kind of to the point with, your account transactions, information, things like that. The issue that I had with Marcus by Goldman Sachs in this savings account was that the app itself was kind of buggy. When I was trying to add an external bank account, I kept getting kicked out of the app, when it sends you that code, to verify your phone number or something like that, or your email. And I would go to check that out, and then I would go back to the app and it's gone. Like it would just kick me back to the main screen. And then of course, sometimes you have that word in the iPhones, it has that number that automatically just comes up and you tap it. So when it was doing that, it was still able to get through sometimes, and then it would kick me out. So eventually I was able to add an account and got through with that. However, something I noticed with this account is that they do not allow you to link SoFi bank accounts with Marcus by Goldman Sachs. I tried to do it the instant way with Plaid, would not let me add it. And then I tried to do it the, manual way with the account number and routing number. And it gave me this error message right here, as you see on the screen, basically saying like, no, we're not cool with SoFi, I guess, which is odd because the CEO of SoFi used to work at Goldman Sachs years ago. So I don't know if there's some kind of clause or something like that going on, or what's the deal with that. I actually reached out to their customer service and kind of mentioned this to them, like, hey, why do you all not work with SoFi in regards to having it as an external bank account? And it just gave me like a bland, sorry about that. We're working on adding new, financial institutions and blah, 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 something like that. So you see it there on the screen. It was just like, I just wanted to kind of see maybe if there was something they wanted to, let me know. And I was going to share it with you all, but no, just the kind of bland response right there from them. But that was an issue I noticed with Marcus by Goldman Sachs. And they state that we are not able to instantly link Chase, US Bank, or PNC bank account. So you see the screenshot on the screen right there of what they state that we can't instantly link this bank. So it's multiple banks they can't instantly link. However, you can go the manual link way and try that. I did not try it for Chase, US Bank, or PNC Bank. However, I did try it for SoFi, and it wouldn't let me allow it to link either way, instantly or the manual way. Pretty interesting. But overall, the other things I like about Marcus by Goldman Sachs is that the APY holds pretty steady. They don't drop theirs as much as some of the other banks or financial institutions out there, which is nice. And of course, it's backed by Goldman Sachs, which is one of the largest banks in the United States based on total assets. And now let's move on to the next one. That's going to be the SoFi high yield savings account. And now I want to move on to the next honorable mention, and that's going to be the SoFi high yield savings account. Previously, this account was at 3.80% APY about a month ago. However, it's since been dropped down to 3.6%. Now, a nice thing about the SoFi savings account with all the drops that have been happening is that SoFi didn't drop the APY on their account that much, I believe twice this year in 2025, whereas other banks and financial institutions were dropping their APYs in their savings accounts probably 5-6 times. I mean, if you've been locked in here with me on the channel, you've definitely seen the movements of these APYs, and many banks, it seems like almost probably every video is like, oh, they dropped it again. They dropped it again. Oh, maybe they dropped it a little bit. Oh, they dropped it a lot, or they're out of the top 10 now. So you have that going on. SoFi held it pretty steady. Now, not the highest of APYs to get in the top 10, but still a nice APY. However, they do have a promo going on because as you see on the screen, 4.30% APY. So yes, currently they have this promotion. You see it there on the screen where you can get a boost of 0.70% APY when you open a new SoFi savings account by January 31st, 2026. and become a SoFi Plus member within 60 days. And so to become a SoFi Plus member, a couple of ways to do that. You can set up, eligible direct deposit to go into your account at least once a month, either to your savings or checking account, and you will become a SoFi Plus member. Or you can pay the $10 a month fee to become a SoFi Plus member every month. So $10 a month and you have SoFi Plus, or you can have an eligible direct deposit at least once a month, you'll have SoFi Plus. If you meet those requirements, then you have this 0.70% boost on your SoFi savings account for 6 months. And that boost will remain at 0.70% no matter what's going on with the standard APY that's going on with SoFi. So you see how it dropped, but the boost stayed the same. So they still have the boost going on. However, the APY themselves, of course, are variable. So that's subject to change as it has recently. But it is nice to have that boost because you see that 4.30%. When you get into the top 10 list of this video, you'll see that would be in the top 10. It definitely would be towards the middle of the list somewhat right there. But that is a nice APY with that boost. But yeah, that is a nice APY without the boost and definitely with the boost. And with the SoFi high yield savings account, there's no minimal initial deposit required to open the account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And with SoFi, you can have up to $3 million in FDIC insurance with their program banks that they have going on. So they basically spread your deposit around to different banks that they have partnered with as their program banks to get you that higher FDIC insurance. There's a couple of other banks and financial institutions that do that as well. I'll tell you about them when we get to them here in the video. Let's move on to the next honorable mention here. That's going to be the Betterment Cash Reserve account. Previously, this account was at 3.75% APY. However, in the past month, they've lowered the APY down to 3.5%. As you see as well, there's another APY on the screen of 4.15%. That is because Betterment has a promotion going on as well. That has been going on for a while and staying even though the APY has been dropping. So I'm going to show you a couple of different screenshots here so you can see the boost stays the same. However, the APYs can definitely change, and the trajectory that APYs have been on for deposit accounts is downward. And if you've been locked in here with me on the channel, you definitely know about that and you've seen it. So previously, this boost would get your account up to 4.65% and then 4.40%. But now 4.15%. That's because the boost has stayed the same of 0.65% this past year. However, the APY on this account has been lowering like other savings account and cash account type of accounts as well. Now, you even changed up the graphic a little bit here with this one. You see the previous one had the little neon going on, but yeah, this one has a little bit different graphics going on with the style. And so this boost of 0.65% is for new Betterment Cash Reserve customers. And if you get that account open and with that minimum deposit, I believe it's $10 with their, yes, $10 minimum deposit. If you get that account open with that minimum deposit, you can have that boost locked in through January 15th, 2026. So not as long as SoFi with their boost, but you get a little extra boost right there for a short period of time. And with the Betterment Cash Reserve account, there's of course that $10 minimum initial deposit required to open it, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And with this account, you can get up to $2 million of FDIC insurance. Now let's move on to the next honorable mention. That's going to be the Wealthfront Cash account. This account was previously at 3.75% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.5% APY. But they have a promotion going on as well. 4.15% is what you can get on the APY for a Wealthfront Cash account if you are a new customer. Let me show you the promotion on this one. So the boost for new customers to Wealthfront is 0.65%. And if you open your account with Wealthfront, you will have that boost locked in for 3 months. So it will stay the same as well at that 0.65%, no matter where the APY goes for their account normally. And it has been lowering like other accounts. However, the boost has remained the same because they've had this promotion going on for a good part of this year. And with the Wealthfront Cash account, there's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open the account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And with the Wealthfront Cash account, you could obtain up to $8 million of FDIC insurance. So yes, definitely the largest amount of FDIC insurance I've seen for a cash account, savings account type of account. The Wealthfront Cash account is kind of like a hybrid type of account when it comes to this account because you can get a debit card with it and it has some checking account functionality with it, but then it has, of course, savings account functionality with it as well. So it's kind of like a hybrid type of account. And I have a detailed review video of this video on my channel. Link in the description. I actually have review videos of several of these accounts on my channel. I'll have a link to the playlist in the description so you can check that out in the videos as well. Last honorable mention, that is going to be the popular direct online savings account. About a month ago, this account was at 4.05% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4% APY. And there's a minimum $100 initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, this account almost got in the top 10 if it would have stayed at 4.05%, because what we're going to get into now are all of these accounts that have dropped out of the top 10 because of how much they lowered their APY and the APY of the other accounts that are still in the top 10 or that made the top 10. Let's get into it here. First account that dropped out of the top 10 is the Western Alliance High Yield Savings Premier account. About a month ago, this account was at 4.1% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.95% APY. And this account was at number 10, so it was at the edge of it already. So all it took was another drop and it's out. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And the next account that was knocked out of the top 10 is the Basque Bank Interest Savings account. Previously, this account was at 4.15% APY. However, in the past month, it's been lowered down to 3.9% APY. And there's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and you must fund this account within 15 days of opening, or else they may possibly close it. And the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. And now let's move on to the next account that was also knocked out of the top 10. That was tied at number 9 as well. That is the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings account. About a month ago, this account was at 4.15%. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.9%. There's a minimum opening deposit requirement of $1,000, and that 3.9% is only for balances between 0 and 500,000. If your balance is over 500,000 in this account, then your APY would only be 0.01%. And with the interest on this account, it compounds daily and is credited monthly. And then there's more accounts that dropped out of the top 10. Next up here was the Premise Personal Savings account. It was tied at number 8 in my video for November 2025. However, that's when the account was at 4.2% APY. In the past month, they've lowered the APY all the way down to 3.85%. And there's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And this account has FDIC insurance available up to $2 million. And then the next account is the My Banking Direct. It was tied at number 8 as well. However, that's when the account was at 4.2% APY. In the past month, they've lowered the APY down to 4.02%. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the balance must be at least $1 to obtain that APY of 4.02%. I always find it funny when accounts say something like that with like a really small amount. It's like, you gotta have some money in this account to get this APY. We're not gonna give you the APY with 50 cents in your account or something like that. And the interest on this account is compounded and credited monthly. And there was another tie at number 8 last month. That's with the Brio Direct High Yield Savings account, when the APY was at 4.20%. However, in the past month, the account has dropped its APY to a 4%. And there's a minimum $5,000 deposit required to open this account, and your balance must be at least $25 to obtain that APY of now 4%. And with the interest on this account, it is compounded daily and credited each statement cycle, which is monthly. And there's more accounts that have dropped out of the top 10, like the Poppy Bank Premier Savings account. Previously, last month, this account was tied at number 7 with the APY at 4.25%. However, it's since been lowered down to 4%. And there's a minimum balance requirement of at least $1,000 in this account that must be maintained to earn that APY of 4%. And the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. And all of these accounts on this video have no monthly maintenance fees. However, sometimes you have to do a little simple task to obtain that no monthly maintenance fee, and that is with the Poppy Bank Premier Savings account. In order to avoid the $5 a month paper statement fee, you must just exclude yourself from paper statements and go the electronic route. If you don't, then there will be a $5 monthly fee on this bank account. And also another account that was knocked out of the top 10 is the Presidential Bank Advantage Savings account. Previously, last month, this account was at number 4 on the list with a nice APY of 4.5%. However, it's since been lowered down to 4%, which is still a nice APY in this environment we're in. However, it's not nice enough to be in the top 10 list. And there's a $5,000 minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And to qualify for the higher rate on this Advantage savings account at now 4%, you must also have an open Advantage checking account with Presidential Bank. And Presidential Bank offers FDIC insurance up to $5 million on this account. And now those were the accounts that were in my top 10 list for November 2025. However, with the lowering of their APYs, those accounts are no longer in the top 10. They have been knocked out. But now let's get into the top 10 list. And starting here at number 10 is the Genius Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.05% APY. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this Genius Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.05% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,165.68. So in a month of letting that amount of money sit in this account, you would earn interest of about $165.68. And now moving on, at number 9 is the Bread Financial High Yield Savings Account. About a month ago, this account was at 4.2% APY. However, it's since been lowered down 0.05% to 4.15% APY. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account and a $1 million deposit maximum. And the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this Bread Financial High Yield Savings Account at 4.15% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,169.86. And moving on to number 8 on the list is the VO Bank Online Savings Account. About a month ago, this account was at 4.26% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.16% APY. There's a minimum $100 initial deposit requirement to open this account, and there is a $5 monthly fee if you receive paper statements on this account. However, you can opt out of that to avoid that monthly fee. And the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this VO Bank Online Savings Account at 4.16% APY with the interest compounding daily, after a month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,170.28. And now at number 7, we have a tie. First up here is going to be the Lending Club Level Up Savings Account. This APY has held steady for the past couple of months at 4.2%. There's no minimal initial deposit requirement to open this account. You must have a deposit of at least $250 per month to obtain the high yield of 4.2%. If you miss a month, then your APY will be 3.2%. And with the interest on this account, it is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this Lending Club Level Up Savings at 4.2% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,171.25. Also tied at number 7 here is the Open Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.20% APY. This is another account that has held their APY steady for the past couple of months, which is definitely impressive. As you see, most accounts have been lowering their APY in just a month. And there's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: same as the previous account. If you had $50,000 in this Open Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.2% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,171.25. And at number 6 is the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.25% APY. And that APY has held steady here for the past month, which is nice to see. There's a $2,500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and your balance must be at least $2,500 to earn that high APY, which is currently at 4.25%. If your balance is under $2,500, then your APY will only be 0.05%. And there is a $1 million balance maximum on this account, and the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this Ivy Bank high yield savings account at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $173.62 worth of interest. And at number 5 on the list is the Total Bank money market deposit account at 4.26% APY. This yield has held steady for the past couple of months. And yes, this is a money market account. However, it's very similar to a savings account, so it is once again made the list. Sometimes money market accounts have some features of a checking account, but still also have a high yield of a savings account. However, sometimes money market accounts have a higher yield than a checking account, but lower than a high yield savings account. However, it has like checking features. Some banks out there don't have money market accounts at all. They just have a checking and a savings, and then of course, maybe other type of accounts like CDs and credit cards and things like that. However, there are some banks out there that still have money market accounts, and some that have money market accounts instead of a savings account. So you just kind of see these not as much as savings accounts, but they are around, and sometimes they do have APYs with them that are as high as a high yield savings account. And with this account, there's a $25,000 minimum initial deposit requirement to open it, and your account balance must be at least $2,500 to obtain that APY of 4.26%. And there is a $1 million account maximum on this one. And the interest on this account is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in this Total Bank money market deposit account at 4.26% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,174.04. And at number 4 on the list is the New Tech Bank high yield savings account at 4.35% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And this APY is another one that has held steady for the past month, and there is no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $50,000 in the New Tech Bank high yield savings account at 4.35% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $50,000 would turn into about $50,177.80. And at number 3 on the list is the Axos Bank Axos One savings account at 4.51% APY. And this yield is holding on and remaining the same for the past couple of months. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, there is a stipulation with the yield on this account and some things that you must do in order to obtain that high yield of 4.51%. So you must have an Axos One checking account and meet one of the following requirements to obtain that 4.51% yield in your Axos One savings account. So here are the requirements here on the screen. But the first requirement, of course, is that you have an Axos One checking account. So once you have that, you must have one of the following 2 requirements in place to obtain that high APY for the savings account. So option number 1, you can receive at least $1,500 in total monthly qualifying direct deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $1,500. So if you do both of those in your Axos One checking account, then you could obtain that high APY of 4.51% in your savings account. That's one option. The other option, you still must have an Axos One checking account, but the second option is that you receive at least $5,000 in total monthly qualifying deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $5,000. So that was a little different because it's not direct deposits that you must obtain. It's just qualifying deposits. So that's like, external transfers into this account from an external bank account can go towards a qualifying deposit. Qualifying direct deposit for option number 1 is like, payroll, pension, government benefits that are paid into your account through ACH transfer, on a monthly basis or every 2 weeks or every week, how often you get paid. So direct deposits are what you think of, payroll basically usually is how most people get that, or government benefits, something like that. That's direct deposits. Monthly qualifying deposits, that's just, deposits going into the account. And then the other difference between these 2 options is the average daily balance amount. Option number 1 has a requirement of an average daily balance of more than $1,500. Option number 2 has a requirement of an average daily balance amount of more than $5,000. So differences right there between the two options, but you must meet one of those in order to obtain the 4.51% APY on the Axos One savings account. If you don't meet those requirements, then the APY on this savings account is 1%. Calculation example for this one, if you had $50,000 in this Axos One savings account at 4.51% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $184.08 of interest. And at number 2 is the Pi Bank online savings account at 4.60% APY. And this yield has remained steady for the past couple of months, and it's holding on to that number 2 spot on the list as well. Now, there are somewhat of issues with this account. Findings that I read in the fine print, they do not generate or accept ACH transfers, including micro deposits. However, with Pi Bank, that doesn't work. So to fund your Pi Bank savings account, you have to transfer money into it via Plaid or wire transfers. So that's what you can call like an instant link. You may see that on some bank accounts. You'll see an instant link to get an external, account added to your account to transfer money back and forth. Instantly linking is usually some service like Plaid, or I think Trustly is another one. But there's those accounts where you basically put in your info for the external bank account, like your username and password, or your phone number, things like that, and then you basically have access to it through that third party. So Pi Bank would be able to, obtain transfers from your external bank account via the linking with Plaid. So that's an instant link. So I know that may turn some people off. Some people don't like Plaid. They don't want to put in their information with it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. So that could be a red flag right here for you. Now, if you don't mind Plaid, if you've got about Plaid, you've got signups on it, you've got bank accounts on Plaid, you sign up for your external bank accounts that way all the time, then that wouldn't be an issue with you. But if it is an issue with you, then that's a red flag. However, you could do wire transfers if you wanted to with Pi Bank. That's another way they accept the funding of their online savings account. Now, another finding in the fine print that was a bit concerning and a red flag to me is that outgoing transfers can only be made through a wire transfer. Then it goes on to state, while Pi Bank does not charge fees for wire transfers, your bank may apply fees for both incoming and outgoing wire transfers. And then it also states for this account that additionally, Pi Bank Savings does not support payments through bill pay or Zelle. So there are some things you could do with other high yield savings accounts that you cannot do with this one. But with this Pi Bank online savings account, there's no minimum initial deposit required to open it, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly on the 15th. Calculation example for this one, if you had $50,000 in the Pi Bank online savings account at 4.6% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $50,000 in this account would earn you about $187.84 of interest. And still at number 1 on the list is the Varo high yield savings account at 5% APY. It has stayed at number 1 on my list for the past couple of videos because that APY has remained the same at 5%. Now, there's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, there are some stipulations with that 5% yield that I need to tell you about. That 5% APY is only on balances up to $5,000. The APY will only be 2.50% for the rest over $5,000 if the requirements are met. And now the APY is going to be 2.50% on all of the balance if you don't meet the requirements. Now you may be wondering, what are the requirements to even obtain 5% on up to $5,000 of money in this account? Well, here are the requirements right here. First requirement is that you open a Varo bank account and savings account. So have those accounts open with Varo Bank. Then the next requirement is that you receive direct deposits of at least $1,000 by the end of the month. So total direct deposits of at least $1,000 by the end of the month. Typical direct deposits by payroll, pension, government benefits, something like that. Now, the next step is that you have to make sure your accounts aren't negative at the end of each month. So if you follow those requirements, then you would earn 5% APY on your balance in the Varo high yield savings account up to $5,000. And then your balance over that amount would have an APY of 2.5%. If you don't meet those requirements at all, then your APY is going to be 2.5% on your whole balance, up to $5,000, over $5,000, all of it. And now there's some fine print on the Varo Bank high yield savings account I want to tell you about as well that may be important information for you. So it states on their website that money can't be transferred from your Varo savings account to an external account. A savings transfer will need to be completed to transfer from your Varo bank account. So a little extra step you have to do to transfer money from your high yield savings with Varo to an external bank account. So, if you want to transfer money from this account to your account with Chase, Bank of America, SoFi, Ally, Capital One, American Express, whoever, if you wanted to do that, you can't just transfer it from the Varo savings account to that external bank account. You have to do a savings transfer. So you need to transfer the money from your Varo savings account to your other Varo bank account and then transfer it from that Varo bank account to the external bank account. So yeah, a little extra step. Normally you could just transfer it from your savings account to an external bank account. Boom, that's it. Varo makes you transfer it in-house once in order to transfer it out of house to an external bank account. But yeah, that's still number one on the list, the Varo high yield savings account at 5% APY. And now I want to tell you about some of the things that all of these accounts have in common. Now, very important, all of these accounts are FDIC insured up to that standard amount of $250,000. So if something happens to that bank or financial institution, they went under, a bankrupt, something like that, FDIC insurance would step in and cover you of the amount in your account up to $250,000. However, there are some accounts on this list that have higher FDIC insurance available. And I told you about each one of those as we went through. So, there's some that offer $2 million, $3 million, even $8 million. So there are accounts that have higher FDIC insurance. But one thing with all of these accounts, they all have at least $250,000 of FDIC insurance. So next thing all of these have in common is that there is no monthly maintenance fees. There's a couple of accounts on here, like I told you about, that have a paper statement fee of like $5 if you don't opt for electronic paper statements. But it's kind of different, but I also kind of consider that a maintenance fee or monthly fee. However, there's an easy way to get that waived. So basically all of the accounts on this video have no monthly maintenance fee. All the APYs on this video, of course, are variable and subject to change. With savings accounts, that's a standard typical thing. The APYs that you see are variable for accounts on this list and accounts that aren't on this list. As you see, the APYs definitely change. They're subject to change because they will and do change. And they have been, as you see on this video. So when you see this video, there's a possibility that the APY on this video is different in a few weeks or in a month, depending on when you see this video, 2 months, 3 months. But yeah, so APYs are variable and subject to change. Next thing in common is that all of these accounts have no monthly minimum balance required to avoid fees. There's a couple of them that have the requirement of doing the electronic statements, but none of the accounts on here have a minimum balance to avoid fees. Now, some of these accounts have minimal initial deposit requirements that you must do in order to actually have the account open fully and officially. But I told you about each of the accounts that have those in the amount, so you know about that. And with all of the accounts on this video, the bank or financial institution that's offering the account has a mobile app that's available on the Apple and Google Play App Store, which is a very, key feature and function for an online savings account, is being able to, log into it and check into it on the go, look at the balance, set up some transfers, and so forth. And that is it with my video on the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY for December 2025. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it down below and subscribe to the channel Finance with Avrin if you're not already. Much appreciated to those of you that are. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Take care.